Starting off hard here. What is waving? So when you say waving, I think about it as a verb, the act of waving, to mimic something that resembles a wave form. So it has a frequency. There's some form of undulation that can be small or big. It can have different shapes, but also I think about it as a focal point or a continuous transfer of energy. So you can kind of follow a focal point through an object. Yeah, if that makes sense. When did it first emerge? Oh shit. See, that's some anthropological shit. I would say it would trace back to the beginning of time. As far as I think waving is really a mind-based dance in which I think as children we all mimic our environment. So it's part of our developmental psychological state is to mimic our environment, to become part of the tribe, or to, survive in some type of way. So why did we start mimicking waves is a whole other question. And my guess is probably that it was in some form trying to tell a story of a wave or of water, of these types of things. So yeah, I would say that's probably where you're going to find the beginning of it. Is the question is, why did people start to mimic things that were waving? So the most important elements of waving, it depends what you're miming. So if you're miming electricity, or you're miming water or ribbons or leaves or sand, your clothes are waving right now. So as far as the most important element of that, I would say first it's the ability to articulate what you're seeing. So it starts with the visual. So also your ability to create the connection of your thoughts to your body to mimic a wave. Now, what does that require? It requires some form of body control. And some people will think when you say, oh, that's clean, that's a clean wave, or most people think that it's smooth or that it's controlled, it's uniform through its isolation. So isolation is a huge part of waving. But you can also not be isolated. Control is not always clean or precise. Control can be if you tell your body to get sloppy or very, this could still be a wave, right? It could be almost like say if I hit a big thing of Jello and it's going blah, 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 blah. That's kind of a wave, right? So it's about the control of your imagination and articulation through your body. No, it doesn't originate from popping. And also there's a lot of debate too. We have to think about the origin of words. When we think about popping, we think about waving, we think about tutting, all these sub-styles. You have to think about people were articulating what they saw. So when they saw popping, oh, he's popping, literally it looked like he's popping, like popcorn, or there's people that were named popcorn because it looks like they're popping. So it's the articulation of the pop. So people are just describing what they saw. They could say, oh, he's just getting down, or oh, that's that pop locking, or that's that boogaloo. So all those things can be trying to articulate the same thing that somebody is seeing. And so as far as does it popping itself, some people just say that's the pop, that's all it is. And this is where I've been thinking about it a lot lately, is popping is a texture. Waving is also a texture, but it can also be a style as well as popping. But what makes waving a style versus a movement form or a transition or a way of telling a story? To me, waving is still finding its footing as far as what makes it a complete style. There's so many influences. The crazy thing is too, though, is that you don't necessarily know where the influences started, So as far as in the beginning, when we were talking about popping, like people were just doing tidal waves like this, but there was already belly dancing at a high level. So, but people here didn't know about that. We're in LA right now. You talk about the Bay Area. So as far as when you're talking about waving, when did it start to become more advanced in this sort of things? It happens over time. So we have to think this is pre-internet days too. So the 70s, 60s, 70s, the snake could have just been a social dance. This is also a wave, right? So grooves were also waves. So all these things, how did things start to become more detailed and articulated? It was the competitiveness of the ciphers, of the battles. It was like, how do I show that I'm better or more articulate than the next? As far as countries, you got to think back to ancient times. I'm sure, you know, everything kind of dates back to Africa or China. You have India, you have Polynesian dance. All those things were like, had some sort of wave. You can even look at like certain Russian, Singaporean dances where they have mudras and they're like kind of waving them. Imitating snakes. Like, this is long time. I don't know. As far as events, it's not even really events. It was more people, I think. You know, when we think about events, we can generalize, oh, this event had a big impact, but it's lacking the context in the sense we can name specific people that were helping this style grow too. So, and also waving didn't really have a home by itself in the street dance community. So when I think about people that inspired me, there's so many to name, but like even people that I like, there was a documentary called Detours, which is David Elsewhere, Skywalker, Wave-O-Matic, Squid, all these guys were doing super abstract waves that weren't fitting popping. They were exiles, you know? They were chilling more, like from what I understand, they were chilling more with b-boys and stuff, you know? So they were like the one popper of the b-boy crew. So they had to have crazy ground moves and stuff. So as far as those people created a really deep foundation, but also what a lot of people don't talk about, you also have like the old school guys, Taco and Mr. Wave, Damon Frost, I'm going to miss a lot of names. You have all the Pomona wavers, Daryl Stokes, No Bones Tyrone, Dollar Bill, Boardman, all these Groovatrons, crazy, right? This is like when you mix popping with waving. But now you talk about like, there's a whole other community of liquid dancers, digits, all this sort of stuff that was coexisting at the same time. But this was the rave culture, you know, this is a different music genre. So it's really hard to say like, you know, did these people know about each other? This is pre-internet days. You might not know the person down the street. So it's very hard to say where it comes from, what events specifically. In the 90s, popping kind of faded out and died, but the rave culture was coming up. So that's when liquid and stuff really started to take off to a whole nother level. So that carried on and that got added to what we know today. So you also had smurfing from France and things like that, which was their form of popping and animation. So the rave culture, for sure, this is the question is, what is motivating people to wave without understanding where it's from or someone teaching them that? It's being derived from the music or the drugs. Cut. So, but this is a really important thing that people don't want to talk about is drugs and the influence on styles. This is my dissertation, but when you think about what motivates people to move in a certain way to music, you can't separate music, movement, and drugs. They go hand in hand. It could be caffeine, that's a drug. It could be marijuana, it could be all these things. I mean, this is stuff that probably won't make it into any sort of documentation as of right now, but it's really important, I think, as far as the history of things. Yeah, foundations. Foundations, it depends, you know. A lot of these questions, there's really complex answers, but as if I'm to say, isolation is a really important aspect of it, and Yeah, I would say it's pretty similar to the answer I gave before as far as miming. Yeah. To look at something and understand why something moves the way it moves, and then being able to try and apply that to your anatomy. That's the art, I think. That's the art of waving. Waving style versus like the technique of waving. When somebody sticks with a wave as their predominant style, for example, if I'm waving and popping, what is, as far as if you're cooking something, what is more as far as how much you put into the dish, you know? That's what I would say is like, if you're popping more than you're waving, I would say you're a popper that waves. But if you're waving more than you pop, then I would say, oh, a waver that pops. Yeah. Oh man, I love all of it. Yeah. I would say blues is one of my favorite. So blues, jazz. I like things with ad libs, real instruments. I like down tempo stuff. Like I could wave to this, but see, like vocals, lyricism, like lyrical waving, things like that. Also, instruments are lyrical, so things that have flow and maybe not so percussive, although you can hit percussion. I think of waving as like wind instruments. It's versus like popping, which is like drums. It's percussive. So that's when I think of when I hear music. It could be any genre, but does it have something that has melodic component to it? Yeah. Dive deep. I'm still diving deep. I feel like I'm still scratching the surface. This is something I was reflecting on after yesterday's event, Waves Within, was that yes, I practice waving, but for me it was more of a response than it was like a conscious choice. It's like almost like it's just the way that I danced. At first I couldn't really groove, you know, it didn't make sense to me because it was like a disorganized wave. So the only way that I could feel like understand my movement was to make it all connect. So that's really why I wave. And diving deep to me is only really diving deep more into the music. And so my diving deep into the music is being reflected in waves. Yeah. Don't join a cult. That's it. Nah, I would say I say that jokingly, just because in a lot of ways that I'm kind of a obsessive person, and I'm not saying people impose the cult on me, but I just get absorbed into certain things. But it's really about understanding your values before you adopt a group's values. So understand why it is, why you want to do this thing, and maybe the why is always going to change, you know. So for me, waving is kind of a tool that can go through life with you, and it takes different forms. So maybe at first it was like, I want to be cool, I want to like impress the girls, and then it became something spiritual somehow, you know, like what the fuck, I wasn't expecting this. It has to take different shades as you grow. So what I would say is find a community that shares your values, find a music that you love, and don't let somebody tell you can't like wave to this type of music. Follow what you like to listen to and just do that. And maybe you won't have friends, but it's okay. Your friends will find you, you know. Just keep doing what you're drawn towards. Follow your curiosity, you know. Waving. I guess I just say thank you. Thank you to waving. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for the interview.
For sure.